Hey, you! Yeah, you! Hey, what do you know about tariffs, huh? You think it's just some government mumbo-jumbo? Some boring econ class term? Forget about it. Tariffs are real. They decide how much you pay for sneakers, avocados, or even that shiny iPhone in your pocket. Tariffs can start trade wars, crush entire industries, or even create jobs. We're cracking open the vault on tariffs. What they are, how they work, who makes them happen, and why they're one of the sharpest tools in America's economic toolbox. Capiche? Chapter 1. What is a tariff? Alright, so here's the scoop. A tariff is a tax on imports. Not sales tax, not income tax. This is a border tax, like a toll booth at the edge of the country. Better yet, it ain't just a tax, it's a tool, and sometimes even a weapon. Tariffs come in all kinds of varieties, like cold cuts at the deli. You got your ad valorem, a cut of the price, percentage style, your specific, flat fee per unit, no questions asked, and your compound, the double whammy, both cut and fee. Then there's the tariff rate quota. First slice of cheese is cheap. Second slice costs you double. And don't forget the specials. Anti-dumping duty. You dump goods cheap, we hit back hard. And countervailing duty. You get unfair subsidies, we level the playing field. It's tariff justice, deli style. Type 1. Ad valorem tariff. You pay based on what it's worth. Ad valorem is Latin for according to value. This type of tariff is a percentage of the item's price. It moves with inflation. If prices go up, so does the tariff revenue. Works best for luxury goods and electronics, where prices vary. You import a $100,000 BMW from Germany. There's a 2.5% ad valorem tariff on passenger cars. You pay $2,500 in tariffs to the U.S. government. Type 2. Specific tariff. Flat fee per unit. This one's simple. You pay a set fee per physical amount, per item, per pound, and per gallon. Doesn't matter if it's cheap or fancy. It's easy to calculate and great for bulk goods, and helps protect against low-cost dumping. However, it doesn't adjust for inflation. The U.S. used this particular tariff type heavily in agriculture, like sugar, tobacco, and dairy. Type 3. Compound tariff. 2 for 1. Value plus quantity. This is the combo meal of tariffs. Part ad valorem, part specific. So you pay a percentage in a fixed amount. Governments want steady revenue and value protection. Great for luxury goods, alcohol, perfumes, stuff with high margins. Compound tariffs show up a lot in textiles and footwear, because some shoes cost $20, some cost $200, but they all get both a flat fee and a percentage. Example, you import wine from France. There's a 14 cent per liter plus a 6.3% ad valorem tariff. So a 1 liter bottle worth $20, 14 cents, specific, plus $1.26, 6.3% of $20 equals $1.40 tariff total. Type 4. Tariff rate quota. TRQ. Cheap first, expensive later. This one's clever. You import up to a certain amount at a lower tariff, but you go over that limit, you pay a higher rate. It helps balance supply and demand, keeps farmers in business while allowing some trade, and gives developing countries a little access without flooding the market. TRQs are big in sugar, dairy, beef, and cotton. Example, U.S. allows 1.2 million metric tons. That's 2,204.62 pounds of sugar imports at 1.1 cents per pound. Once that quota is filled, new imports pay $15.36 per pound. That's more than 10 times the cost. A big difference. Type 5. Anti-dumping duty. You dump, you pay. Dumping means a foreign company selling goods below cost, just to crush local competition. These tariffs only come after an investigation. U.S. domestic companies must prove injury to the U.S. industry. Example, a foreign country sells steel in the U.S. for less than it costs to make. Our steel companies scream, "They're trying to wipe us out." The U.S. Department of Commerce investigates. Turns out, our steel companies were right. So boom, anti-dumping duty of 25% slapped on that foreign country's steel imports. Type 6, countervailing duty, CVD. Stop the subsidy advantage. This one's like anti-dumping's cousin. Say a foreign government gives subsidies, free money, to their companies to lower prices abroad. We don't like that, so we counteract it with a tariff. CVDs also require an investigation and proof before the tariff can be implemented. They're usually paired with anti-dumping tariffs when foreign firms cheat and get help from home. Types of tariffs. Tariffs aren't just numbers. They're leverage tools. They can protect, punish, or just collect cash. Let's run the full playbook one more time. Core tariffs. Ad valorem, percent of value. Specific, flat fee per unit. Compound, both percent of value and flat fee per unit equal ad valorem plus specific. Tariff rate quotas. Lower rate up to a limit. Higher rate after the importer exceeds the quantity limit. Special use tariffs. Anti-dumping duties. Stop below cost imports. Countervailing duties. Offsets foreign subsidies. Chapter 2. Why are tariffs implemented? Why would anyone slap tariffs on imports? Simple. It's like putting a bouncer at the door of the club. Tariffs protect your home team, raise cash for the government, and keep foreign goods from flooding the market like cheap cologne at a knockoff shop. It's about control, competition, and sometimes good old-fashioned leverage. Purpose 1. Retaliation. A retaliatory tariff is when one country taxes imports from another in response to tariffs placed on their own goods. It's a game of economic tit for tat. Take the European Union versus the United States. Back in 2018, the United States, under then President Donald Trump, slapped some hefty tariffs on imported steel, 25%, and aluminum, 10%. Now, the EU ain't no pushover. You punch them in the wallet, they punch back, with style. The European Union hit back with what's called the retaliatory tariff. Basically, their way of saying, oh yeah, you want to play rough? We can play rough too. So in June of 2018, they slapped tariffs on $3.2 billion worth of U.S. exports. Here's just a taste of what they targeted. Motorcycles. Yeah, Harley Davidson got caught in the crossfire. Blue jeans. Sorry, Levi's. Bourbon whiskey. Not the bourbon. Now it's personal. Peanut butter, orange juice, and corn. This wasn't just about the money. It was strategic. They picked iconic American products to put pressure on U.S. politicians. Yeah, real chess move stuff. Why it matters? Well, these EU tariffs had ripple effects. Harley-Davidson moved some production out of the U.S. to dodge the new taxes. American distilleries saw sales drop in Europe. And U.S. farmers, they started sweating real hard. So the moral of the story is that retaliatory tariffs ain't just about numbers. They're about leverage, optics, and pressure. When your trading partner fights back, they aim for your soft spots. Not just your wallet, but your voters, your industries, and your pride. You tax my steel, I tax your whiskey. And that, my friend, is a textbook retaliatory tariff. Purpose 2. Industry protection. Protectionary. It's when the government puts a tax on foreign goods or limits imports to give domestic companies a fighting chance. Sometimes it's temporary. Sometimes it's political. But always, somebody's getting shielded. In this case, it was Detroit Steel. To protect the U.S. auto industry, there was the voluntary export restraints on Japanese cars in 1981. So it's the early 1980s, and Detroit, the heart of the American car biz, is taking it on the chin. The big three automakers, that's General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler, are losing market share like a wise guy losing chips at a crooked poker table. Why? Because the Japanese automakers, think Toyota, Honda, Nissan, are rolling in with small, fuel-efficient cars. And after the 1970s oil crisis, Americans are saying, yeah, give me one of those. I'm tired of feeding my car more gas than I feed my kids. So what happens? The U.S. government strong-arms Japan into voluntary export restraints. VERs, in 1981. But don't let the word voluntary fool ya. Under the deal, Japan limited the number of cars it exported to the U.S. and capped at 1.68 million vehicles per year. This effectively protected the U.S. auto industry from competition by making foreign supply tighter, which let domestic automakers breathe, regroup, and raise prices. So while this ain't technically a tariff, it worked exactly like one. It raised the price of imports and shielded U.S. manufacturers from getting clobbered. Purpose 3. Revenue generation. A revenue-generating tariff is a tax on imports designed not to punish, not to protect, but just to raise funds for the government. And this one, it was our founding fathers' version of passing the collection plate. No fuss, no global tantrums, just straight-up cash flow. The year is 1789. George Washington just got sworn in. The ink's still wet on the Constitution. The U.S. government is broke, and I mean dead broke. We got no income tax, no IRS, no money printing machine, just a lot of war debt from beating up on the British. So what do? Boom! The Tariff Act of 1789, the first major law passed by the brand new United States Congress. It's purely revenue generating, no retaliation, no economic chess games. What happened? Congress passed a tariff on a wide range of imported goods, like glass, steel tools, textiles, shoes, molasses. The average tariff rate? About 5%, with some goods getting hit as high as 15%. These weren't meant to protect American businesses. We barely had any yet. This was a money play, plain and simple. Why did this even matter? 80 to 90% of federal revenue in the early 1800s came from tariffs like this. It helped fund the brand new U.S. government, courts, roads, you name it. This revenue kept the U.S. afloat before income taxes existed. And that's a while considering income taxes didn't come on the scene until the Civil War in 1861. So yeah, the Tariff of 1789 was like the government's toll booth at the border. You want to bring your fancy British boots or French wine into America? You pay a little at the door. Chapter 3. Who administrates and enforces tariffs in the U.S.? Alright, listen up. Tariffs don't enforce themselves. There's a whole crew behind the curtain running the show. At the front lines, you got U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CBP. They're the muscles at the border, collecting the duties and inspecting the goods, making sure nobody's trying to smuggle in cheap knockoffs or duck the bill. Behind them, you got the U.S. Department of the Treasury. They manage the money, make sure it goes where it's supposed to go. Now, who makes the rules? That's a team effort. Out of the U.S. government's legislative branch, there's the United States Congress that writes the tariff laws. And thanks to the Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974, the executive branch sees plenty of action when it comes to making rules. The Office of the United States Trade Representative, USTR, is making moves based on the say-so of the President of the United States. They're negotiating trade deals and decides who gets what rate, like the Don Corleone of international commerce and trade. The U.S. International Trade Commission, USITC, investigates unfair trade, like dumping or injury to American industries. And the U.S. Department of Commerce, they're the ones crunching numbers, handing out anti-dumping and countervailing duties when foreign players ain't playing fair. It's like a family business. One's setting the price, one's watching the door, one's checking the books, and the others are running diplomacy and taking complaints. Tariffs? Yeah, they got a whole crew. Chapter 4. What's the current U.S. tariff and trade policy? Alright, so here's the setup. President Donald Trump. Yeah, he's back in the big chair again for round 2. He jacked up tariffs in 2024 and 2025 like a guy trying to collect interest from a guy who's late on rent. These ain't your average nickel and dime measures. We're in shock and awe territory here. Today, the U.S. Trinity. Number 1, a 10% baseline tariff on most countries. Number 2, higher reciprocal tariffs based on trade deficits. Number 3, country-specific top-ups. No country will go without some kind of tariff attention. Everyone is invited to this party. President Trump calls it America First trade. You tax our goods, expect the tax back, and bigger. Canada, our friendly neighbor, got hit with a 35% tariff, up from 25%. Blame? Dairy rules, fentanyl concerns, trade imbalance. So yeah, paper towels, syrup, pet munchies, pricier than ever. Then there's Brazil, coffee capital and big in BRICS. That's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. BRICS' goal is to move global power away from the US dollar. Trump's response? 50% tariff across key exports. South Korea, your high-end phones, TVs, cars, laptops. They've been running a trade surplus, exporting out more than they allow to be imported into their countries. So yeah, they got slapped with 25% tariffs across the board. That high-tech upgrade just jumped a tier. China packs the punch. 55% tariffs on nearly everything. But here's the twist. Under a new deal, that drops to 34% after August 12th. So your furniture, toys, and tools hold tight. Deals are incoming. China tried routing stuff through Vietnam to dodge duties. So Trump's response, 20% tariff for all goods, doubled to 40% if it's just repackaged Chinese goods. That right there, that's the don't get cute tax. The EU, 27 countries, big stakes. President Trump already announced 20% tariffs, with 30% tariffs on select imports, like German cars, French wine, starting August 1st, 2025. That Bordeaux bottle just got more buzzwordy. 150 plus countries, 10 to 15% blanket rate. Here's the kicker. Over 150 smaller countries are getting a flat 10 to 15% tariff. Letters officially went out. Staggering, right? India is likely escaping this, possibly thanks to a pending trade deal. Everyone else, bottom line, even small exporters pay. Then there's the B list, with wide ranges. Bangladesh, 37%. Bosnia and Herzegovina, 35%. Cambodia, 36%, cut from 49%. These vary based on trade deficit calculations, so some lesser-known players got hit harder than Canada did. Chapter 5. How are the 2025 tariffs impacting the U.S.? Okay, let me tell you, these tariffs are doing something that's got economists spitting out their espresso. Tariff revenues are up 40% compared to 2023. That's the biggest year-over-year spike since we've been tracking tariff revenues. And I ain't just talking post-war America. I mean ever. The U.S. is looking at roughly $122 billion in tariff revenues for 2025. Now, let me put that into perspective. U.S. GDP, gross domestic product, is expected to hover around $28 trillion this year, 2025. So tariffs are pulling in about 0.4% to 0.5% of GDP. Doesn't sound huge, right? But listen, that's more than twice what they brought in just a few years ago. It's like finding a few bricks of gold in the couch cushions. You weren't expecting it, and now you're reupholstering the whole living room. All right, so the big question, is it working? Here's the deal. Revenue-wise, the United States is banking more off tariffs than ever before. I'm talking the most in the country's whole history. Trade balance improved slightly in goods with China, but not across the board. What about jobs? Major international companies are pledging new investments into domestic factories, EV batteries, steel plants, but it's early to call that a full win. There's also a steady roll of commitments from companies and manufacturers to move operations into the United States. And here's where the wise guys in the economics world are scratching their heads. Economists have been pulling their hair about, you slap tariffs on, you risk starting a trade war, shrinking global commerce, and raising prices on your own people. Most economists figured the tariffs would increase inflation, launch a recession, cut into GDP growth, raise consumer prices, hurt exports, and maybe even backfire politically. But surprise, surprise, the U.S. economy in mid-2025, it is still chugging along. GDP growth is modest, around 2.1% annualized. Inflation has not surged from tariffs the way people were made to worry that it would, mostly because consumers are shifting to non-tariff goods. And the U.S. dollar's strong. That definitely helps to offset some of the pain from import costs. Delicious and rewarding, like enjoying the desserts from an entire Venetian hour dessert table and not seeing the scale go up the next morning. What does this mean for the American economy? In the short term, America's flexing. Tariffs are paying off in cold hard cash. The economy's stable, and public support higher than expected, especially in states that benefit from factory jobs. But the long-term picture, that's where we got to keep our eyes open. Capiche? Will allies retaliate? Will supply chains adapt or collapse? Would the global system shift? It's like leaning heavy on the gas pedal. Sure, you're moving fast, but if you don't watch the engine temp, boom, overheat. Still, for now, the U.S. is defying the odds. The economy's holding strong. The tariffs are filling the piggy bank. And the stock market? She's singing. So, bottom line on tariffs? Look, love them or hate them. The facts are the facts. 1. Tariffs can bring down costs in the long run by protecting producers from getting steamrolled by cheap, unfair imports. 2. They create jobs, not just out of thin air, but because companies start moving back to the U.S. or investing right here at home. When doing business overseas gets pricey, suddenly the old stars and stripes start looking real attractive again. And 3, tariffs make other countries perform, like a wise guy at a sit-down. Those foreign countries don't get dessert till they play by the rules of fair trade. In the right hands, tariffs ain't just a wall. They're a lever, a tool to promote fair and free trade, not a one-way street where a country always gets shortchanged. You made it through. You're officially smarter than you were 20 minutes ago. So what are you waiting for? Hit that like button, drop a comment about the wildest tariff you've seen this year. Share this video and subscribe to Capiche 001, where complex topics make perfect sense. More plain talking, brain-boosting videos coming your way. Capiche?